10 don'ts of used car management. This one's just kind of a little fun, but it actually, it's a lot of things. As you know, we help dealerships with inventory management. We see a lot of these things that I think really hurt dealers from seeing true gross in volume, what velocity that's out there. And you can have both. You can have gross and volume. You don't have to choose one or the other. And as we work with dealerships, I'll go over what I do for a little bit here. These are the things that we always struggle with dealers to understand what they have to do to get over those hurdles. But this is my contact information. Most of the times you're not going to see me in a suit and a tie. You usually see me in a polo and a hat. I do have, now it's JSEN, if you find me online, LinkedIn, everywhere. But we also have a nice YouTube channel. I've got about 100 plus tips and videos and interviews, probably over the last 5 years. Interviews from highline stores, turning their inventory velocity-wise. We've got small stores to independents to 2-3 minute tips. So check that out. But here's all my contact information. I'll have it at the end also. I'll have my cards at the end if you guys want any of that information. I'll be moving around a lot. I'm not that great a presenter when it comes to stuff like that. I'm real fidgety, so excuse me. I might talk fast. Slow me down if I get a little ahead of myself too. All right? But we'll go ahead and dig into here. To give you a little bit more of my background, I started retail in 1997. And back then, 1998 range, started actually selling cars on the internet. So we were one of the first dealers in the country running internet department in 1998. So I did 8 years on the retailing, mostly selling cars off the internet, which then transitioned to internet director, which also at some point in time I ran an independent used car lot. So it got me that experience. But in 2005, I met a gentleman named Dale Pollock, who had a product then was known as Empire Auto, which now you guys may know as V Auto. So I was one of the first employees that he brought on when he was starting to grow that company. And I got to travel across the country for the last 8 years, or not last 8 years, for 8 years, and literally stepped foot in over 1,000 dealerships, the good, bad, and the ugly, and worked with them on hands-on as a performance manager. And last year was a director of the Eastern region. So that got me into a lot of accounts that were struggling. 5 years ago, I stepped out and did my own thing. I realized dealers needed a little bit more hands-on, deeper help. So I created a company called Lotpop where we do weekly calls and consult dealerships to keep that process going and get gross and volume. We hit them up every week on all the processes that they need to do week in, week in. I'll give them a game plan, but we also hold their hands and change prices as an accountability partner, second set of eyes, and get them to move that inventory, be profitable. And again, over those years, it's been 5 years now, been doing this. We got 17 employees helping hundreds of dealers across the country. It doesn't matter what kind of franchise or not, or independents. But these are the things, and again, I want to bring that up just to tell you, these are these things that we struggle with to get dealerships to kind of overcome. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. The top one would be, this is one of the ones that I think is the most crucial. Don't jack up pricing on fresh inventory to make up your gross, especially if you're working out of aged inventory. The mindset is, I'm working out of aged inventory, I'm losing money there, so I got to make it up somewhere. So we want to jack up the pricing of our fresh stuff and give it a shot. Come on, man, give it a shot, which I'm fine with, but for only about a week or two, and then you got to get realistic and get that car competitive right out the gate. I didn't say aggressive, but I mean competitive. And so what the difference is a lot of dealerships want to mark those cars at or above market to make that gross, again, to offset that age losses. But here's the thing. Our best performing stores, and again, the thousands that I've been in over the last 15 years and the ones that I've helped over the time, the best performing stores to get gross, and doing this also will pick up your volume, 60 to 70% of their sales will go out in the first 30 days. If you're not doing 60 to 70% of your sales in the first 30 days, that's where your gross profit is. Okay? If you can get to at least 50, get to at least 50. But if we're going to push out 60 to 70% of our sales in the first 30 days, do we want to increase or decrease the odds of that car selling in the first 30 days? Right? We want to increase it. So by jacking it up, pricing it at 100, 105, 110% of the market to try to offset my gross problem, I'm decreasing the odds of it selling while it's fresh, which then leads that car to bleed through, and next thing you know, I'm clean, but 60 days later, I'm back in an age problem because I was too late on these other cars that filtered through. Make sense? So Again, this is the very first one. This is the first thing that we track as we help dealerships is what percentage of sales. When I was a director at Auto, I went into a lot of accounts I knew nothing about. And so the only way that I kind of understood, but I knew I was going into struggling accounts that would tell me they're not making enough gross and volume, and I went to their sold report, and this was the first chart I was looking at. What percentage went out the first 30 days? What percentage went out 60 plus? And more times than not, they had 20, 30% going out 60 plus with minimal profit, and that was their gross problem. It wasn't because they cheap sold fresh inventory, okay? So, the second one, don't try to steal trades because you're paying too much at the lane, or you feel like you're giving your car away. Now, I've yet to have a manager tell me, they always say, well, we never lose a deal on a trade. But think about it, when you're buying at the lane or online, simulcast or even just proxy bidding, there's really no dynamics. There's no things to throw things off. Car people sometimes have pride and ego. And when there's so many different factors when we appraise a car, well, I'm saying if I go to OBE, if I go on my smart auction, I do a buy it now or a proxy bid on there, there's not much interference there. There's not even an auctioneer to tick me off or the guy next to me raising the pricing. But when it comes to appraisals, there's so many factors. As a salesman, you feel like it's trying to work the desk harder than the customer. As a customer, you feel like it's lying to you. You know, are we giving away the car deal so we want to make it up here? This guy's paying cash, so I got to make money somewhere, so I'm going to steal their trade. So there's so many factors that happen when we appraise a car that doesn't happen when we buy at the lane, that I think sometimes those things can drive us not looking at the trade as the car if it was in the lane. I mean, imagine if you can have somebody ACV that vehicle. What if you just had your trade department, instead of just one manager looking and driving the trades, what if you had somebody out there doing a condition report and they come back to you with a 4.3 on the trade and you know how to bid it right then and there, right? Because they drove it and it's just a separate transaction. You got to forget about the customer, you got to forget about the deal. The car should stand on its own when you're appraising a car at the curb versus the lane. But there's too many factors. Oh, and then the other thing I would say that drives this, a lot of times I go and look at a dealership that's appraising cars either for buying at the auction or buying or trading cars, and I look at their exit strategy, and a lot of times they have a profit on that thing running. They want to make $1,500 to $2,000 of profit as they're appraising this car, which is great, but to me it's kind of, you're going into that appraisal as hope mode. You want to trade that car and hope to make $1,500 or $2,000. And we've seen a lot of dealerships missing cars because of that. And this really goes back, I guess you would fall in that 08, 09, the cash for clunkers things, and then that filter in the years later where it was hard to buy cars, and even over the last couple months ago where cars are going for retail type money and dealerships are struggling to buy cars for the right money. Going into every car trying to make $2,000, you're going to miss some opportunities. So one of the things we did was reversed the strategy on appraising. We would say, what's your minimum amount of profit you would want to make at day 60? If you have an aging policy and you want to dump the car, what's the minimum amount of profit? And a lot of dealers would say, if I break even or make a few bucks. So we would pad that appraisal for the profit at like $500. Now, I don't want you to just make $500 on a car, but that $500 pad gives us that 60-day depreciation, but it also allows you to see an upgraded bid amount. But also, and it depends on the system that you work, First Look, Auto, Inventory Plus, but some of those will allow you to lock in your profitability at $500, but put the market strategy like 88%. Like it's 60 days old. It's 60 days old, I'm going to price it at 88%. What's the bid amount I can put on that car? Then what you do is you lock in that bid amount, and then you price the car like you would day one, 100% or 98% or 105, and find out if that profit's there. And a lot of times when we work that appraisal backwards, I can pull up into dealerships appraisals, and I'll just randomly find 3 or 4 deals that there's anywhere from $500 to $1,200 profit difference. And I would show them, hey, if I was a dealer down the street, I'd probably do that. Because it's a more realistic exit strategy. If I go into that trade, $500 profit, pricing at 88%, if I end up with that trade, and I get scared and go, I shouldn't have got it, I could do that strategy day one and know I probably got a high probability to get out. Just put it at 88% day one and get your 500 and get off of it then, if you're that afraid. So it's more realistic exit strategy than going in at hope mode. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? I wish I had a system to do it and show you as an example. But all right, so don't try to steal trades because of whatever. Maybe you're paying too much at land, you're giving a car away, all those other factors. Because trades are easier to sell, better gross profit, less likely to age. You want to increase the amount of trades that you have week in and week out. Don't let your car go longer than 2 weeks without a price change. And I said that a little bit hesitantly because sometimes you can maybe go 3 weeks. But as again, going into dealerships, trying to figure out what's going on, and I look at the dealer's inventory, they're bleeding through and aging some reason why. And I had to figure out why we aging, what's causing it. The first thing I would do is go sort their inventory by last price change. And what I found was used car managers are busy. Usually, especially if you're a manager, it's handling 100, 150 cars. You're usually by yourself. You might have desk managers helping you out. But you're the ones buying cars at the auction, helping to get the turnaround through service. You got heat deals in service. You got salesmen calling in sick. You got TO deals. You got crazy cars. You got to go through 2,000 cars at the lane. So all this busyness what I realized, they were so busy that when they actually sat down to attack the inventory, they usually focused in 2 areas. The fresh stuff, because I got to get it online, photo, price, and then age, because boss is on me because of her age problem. And by the time they get done with that, probably during their lunch break while they're eating, they're back to doing business as usual. And what I noticed when I sorted it by last price change, I found 20, 30, 40-day-old cars that we haven't touched since day one. It's like, man, because it's not fresh and it's not aged, and they're missing those cars. So instead of, sorting your inventory by oldest to newest, newest to oldest, no activity, off target, on target, I would say last activity, last price change, if you can look at that. There's more times than not the reason why your inventory is bleeding through and not performing. If it's been, I would look at a car every week to see if I need to make adjustments, but by 2 weeks, I think I got to make a change. If my photos and descriptions are right, everything's standing tall in the car, I think after 2 weeks, you're probably going to want to make an adjustment. Okay? So, I said at the beginning, I have a little trivia, I'd like you guys feedback, not to be quiet or anything. I got a couple shirts up here I can throw out if you want one, if whoever gets this right. We're going to have just a couple trivia questions. These are fun. What year was the first successful electric car built in the U.S.? Throw out some years.
1903.
What's that?
1903.
1903. Anybody else? Come on. 20? What else? I was surprised by this, because it seems like they're still trying to figure this whole electric car thing out. Anybody else? Anybody else?
1888.
1888. 1891. William Morrissey. It had a 50-mile range and a speed up to 20 miles an hour.
What?
Yeah, ain't that crazy? And they're still trying to figure this thing out. You want a large, medium, or extra large? Okay? All right.
Thank you.
Anybody want a shirt?
Extra.
All right. But are you surprised by that? I didn't think they had electricity. I didn't think. But
He didn't, but they had it in a car.
yeah. No, but they have a 50-mile range, possibly 20 miles an hour. I should have took a picture of the magazine I got this out of. I got a magazine that had all this cool car history and ads and stuff that I didn't realize. All right, so back to the don'ts. Don't wait to put a price on a car until it's out of service. I think this one, again, is usually common knowledge, but so many times you run into this. I know some markets, like California, you can't even post a car for sale until it's through service and stuff like that. But we get a lot of excuses, well, I don't know what I owe on it, and so forth. And I love playing devil's advocate and hypocrisy that we have sometimes, because I'll ask a dealership that tells me those kind of things. Well, I got to wait through service. I don't know what I owe, things like that. I would ask them, how many times have you done an appraisal and presented a number to a customer and you presented $7,000 to them? And they say, whoa, that's way too low. And you say, well, what's your number? What are you trying to get? $10,000. Well, where are you coming up with that number? That's what I owe. So you tell the customer, well, if you owed $1, your car worth $1? No, it's not. I mean, here's the auction. Here's the book values. I can go to the lane right now and buy 20 of these things for $7,000. What you owe on your car is relevant to your trade value. Tell customers that day in and day out. But us, we can't do that. Heaven forbid, we got to say, what I owe on the car matters. If I owe 10, I'm going to ask 12. But if the market's $10,000, you're not going to be able to ask 12. So the market drives what you can sell that car for. As much as you may or may not like it, if there's 10 of these cars out there on average at $10,000, you're going to have to be around that number regardless of what you owe on that vehicle. So I also think this is great to help save wholesale losses. Because as soon as you know you got to put 10 grand as your retail price, and you own it for $8,700 already, and it hasn't been through service, and then your service guy is hitting you for $1,100, now you know there's not much money on this car. Either price it at 88% day one, get off the car, or go ahead and wholesale it and take it now and get off of it as soon as possible. So knowing your retail exit strategy, day one, pricing it, you should be able to put a price and a description on the car within a day or two of owning that car. That's one of the goals that we have in our dealerships, and when we're tracking it within a day or two. Because you bought it, you should know if it's a one owner, local trade, if you're going to put new brakes or tires on it, if it's got roof and leather, put your description out there, and then get a price on that thing right then and there. Help you with wholesale decision, understanding, should I go ahead and do the brakes? I know it's borderline, no, don't do it because I don't have much margin, but get that service work done quick and either in or out of wholesale or retail decisions, okay? Again, this is kind of corny, but these are these things that really hold people back when we look at the price. So kind of all right, don't manage your inventory by oldest to newest. I kind of led that earlier when I was talking about last price change. Don't go 2 weeks without price change. But a lot of, again, we're looking at old work. When we look at an inventory and we're wanting to get rid of age, we want to increase growth. So a lot of times our so much focus is on age cars. When a dealership hires us to consult with them, I tell them, you don't need us to get out of your aged inventory. It's not rocket science. Drop the price till they sell. Your focus needs to be your 45 days back. You need to get this, you got to stop the bleed through. You got to strangle it off. This would be a tip for you if you happen to manage inventory. The criteria we look at 0 to 30, 31 to 60, and 60 plus. The middle bucket, 31 to 60, when we're trying to get dealerships out of an age problem, we get that inventory level down to less than 20% of their inventory. If they are carrying less than 20%, 30 to 60 days old, and we're selling them higher than 20%, we're selling more than selling those cars, what we're doing is we're strangling off the bleed through and saying, okay, no more cars are adding to this problem. Let's say you have 10 sitting down here that are aged. We just strangled that off. It might take a couple weeks to get that 31 to 60 at about 20% or less in the teens. Because if I'm carrying teens and I'm selling 25% out of there, another 60 up here, there's not much to bleed through. And then you come up with a game plan to get rid of the 10. Do you do 5 this month, 5 next month, wash your hands, pull off the Band-Aid now, and then just don't get back there. So the key is don't work your inventory oldest to newest. Work at your 45 back. Get that stuff moving, get your 0 to 30. Your turnaround time is going to be key. Get your turnaround time going, pushing those cars out the first 30 days, squeeze that 40 to 60 to less than 20%. That's how you solve an age problem and a worse problem, okay? Not flipping his age and start blowing things out, okay? All right, anybody do that? It's kind of a known thing. This one drives me crazy. I find this one more times than not too. Don't wholesale a car for less than what your retail or what you have it advertised online. Again, as we work through age problems and we're clearing out cars, I will ask a dealer, sometimes I'll pull up a 70-day-old car, what's going on here? Well, I just wholesaled it. What'd you wholesale it for? 18 grand. And I'd see online, they're still pricing it at $20,000. Like, why would you wholesale it for 18? You had it on for 20 grand. He's like, well, what do you want me to do? I was already number one for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I was 88% of market. No one was on it. I'm like, I don't know. Drop it to 19.5. Drop it to 19. Drop it to 18.5. Drop it to 18. Go to 17.5 before you go to the lane and get 18 for it. Because you have no trade opportunities. You have no F&I opportunities. You're probably paying a fee in transportation costs. And you get nothing out of that transaction. So even if I'm break even, or I might even take a $500 hit, wholesale at 18, I might even retail at 17. And the other key part of this is, you know, dealer, if you're not getting trades or somebody travels very far to buy that car because it's so cheap, at some point in time, you got to throw away the retail market. If it's 70 days old, you're number one, I don't care if you're at 70% of the market, just keep moving the price until wholesale makes more sense. But don't just wholesale it. And don't look at, well, I owed 19 on it, so I wholesale it for 18. That's what most dealers should look at. You got to look at what the retail price is compared to what you get it for. Okay? So, as you're working on age, make sure your retail and just keep moving that price. Those cars I probably move every week. until wholesale makes more sense. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, let's just say you blow it out and you don't get a trade or you don't get an F&I. Get a review, okay? Get a review. The customer knows they got a heck of a deal. Validate with them. Get a review, because a review to me is like a bird dog fee. You pay $100, $200, $300 bird dog referral fee, and that's almost what a review is. My wife looks at reviews when we're buying things all the time, and that influences her decisions. And so a good review about the dealership and the deal that they got is going to be worth some money to you at least. So get the review out of it, you get better. So yes, sir.
Just a quick question on this one. So interesting. So you theoretically could always drop your prices to a retail level that you may never need to wholesale, right? And I understand that's not practical.
I don't want to wholesale.
So you said wholesale when it makes sense. Could you just add to that? When would wholesale make sense versus
yeah, I mean,
dropping the
again,
price?
if wholesale's 18 and I've been to 20, trying to get rid of it. By day 45, I'm at 20. By day 50, I'm at 19.5. By day 60, I'm at 19. And then I go to 18.5, and I go to 18. And I know I can go to lane at 18 right now. And then I go to 17.5, and it still doesn't sell. I mean, at that point in time, do I go to 17 and totally lose $1,000, or just go ahead and lane and get the 18? By that time, I think 500 is about that cap that I'm willing to go less than, because that's the fees or transportation differences usually, sometimes, depending on where you're selling it and stuff. But yeah, and then just wholesale it then and then move on. But again, I'm very much on the strict 60 days because of holding costs and what it really actually costs you to sit on cars. And the average holding cost, in NCM will put it at $35 to $55 a day. So, I'll just do easy math. You did it $50. If you wait 10 days, that's $500. So even though you might not want to drop it another $5, but if you wait 10 more days, you might as well have, because that car's still there. It just costs you another $500 in holding costs. So you got to weigh that in part of that decision too. Okay. So, oh, dang it. What year was the first tricolor stoplight installed in what city? Have you guys already seen that? Anybody wants to share? And did anybody see that? Did you guys see what it was?
1911 Detroit.
Yeah, that was too fast. You didn't see it? Oh. 1911?
1918. U.S.
U.S. Yes. Sorry.
Detroit.
Tricolor, not just a single color. 1911 Detroit. Who else? Anybody? Again, it kind of popped up. 1918. You're dang close, but it was Detroit. Detroit. Would you like the shirt? Yes, sir. I don't know which one is me.
Car guy.
Yeah, car guy. There you go. All right. Yeah, I think the first single color light was like 1903 or something. Did you know? And reading this book, this is a little vague, but when the cars first came out, they used to have to do, speed limit was like 3 to 5, and they used to have somebody with red flags walking in front of the car if you're going through the town, because it would spook horses. Because horses, and so they had to have, if you're going to drive a car, you had to have somebody waving a red flag walking in front of you while you're driving the car down the street. I thought that was kind of neat, but.
Burning gas.
Yeah. All right. So another don't. Don't price a car at $19,995 or $19,996, $19,995, $19,999. Put it at 20 grand. I've been studying. I kind of introduced this strategy back in 2011, and I was on a call with one of my dealerships, and he had a car at 12.2 something. I told him, man, you got to get it underneath 12 grand. We went to 11,995. We were talking, and I said, hold on, wait. He's like, what? I said, what if we put it at 12,000 even? He's like, what are you talking about? Well, if we put it at 12, we might get the, because I was telling him we need to get under 12 so we can get to 12 grand and less shopper on this car. I said, if we put it at 12, if it works, you can get the 12 and higher shopper and the 12 and lower shopper, you get both. So you think it works? So we did that for a few cars, and this is back 7 years ago. We did it, and then did it again on multiple of those cars, and then the SRPs, the search results, just blew up on the cars. I mean, just 100, I have plenty of charts if you want to see it, but just, I mean, talking maybe 100 SRPs per day to like 700, 800 SRPs per day. I mean, just skyrocketed, especially prices like 10 grand and 8 grand and 20 grand. So I started studying that and marketing and how else can we get in front of people. And as I was introducing these to my clients, car people, they need proof. Yeah, right. Show me. I need to see results before I do all that. So I was talking to one of my stores, and he said, what's funny, Jason, I was trying to sell my house. I forgot the number, he goes, but He said, I was trying to sell my house for $299 or something, and my real estate agent was adamant that I put it at $300,000. He goes, the same kind of strategy. I said, your real estate agent's doing this? He said, yeah. I said, can I talk to him? Because I want to see results. I need more results to show my stores. And I got a hold of the real estate agent. They track the same things, like views online and appointments by the week. And he showed me this house. They had it like $150,000. And they're getting 600 views a week. And he goes, then I dropped it to 145. And the 600 views went down to like 100 views. But then the other houses, we had better activity, and they shot up. He goes, not only I dropped it from 150 to 145, he said you would think that all my activity would have went up and my appointments would have went up. He goes, but it was weird, it dropped off. So what happens here, and I'll explain on the house, you get the 20 grand in higher shopper, you get the 20 grand in lower shopper, your SRPs take off, okay? Never price. I'd be at 19 grand, I'd be at 18.5, then I go to 18, then I go to 17.5. I'll explain that here in a minute. But you get high, low, low, and high. But this car, more times than not, unless it's miley or no equipment, more times than not is better for the 20 and higher shopper than the 20 and lower shopper. And that's what happened on the house. So here's what happened. When somebody says, hey, I want a car or an Escape or whatever, and they say, but I don't want to spend more than 20 grand as a cap, your car shows up either way, right? My 20 grand car shows up or my 19,995 shows up in that search. But I'm at the very top of their budget. And they go, They might click on it and they go, nice car, but man, if I can find one cheaper, they will. So unless they really, really want to step up on your car, they're going to find the cheaper ones when the person caps out at 20. But when you're at 19,995, as you miss that shopper that says, hey, I want to Escape and I want one with leather and roof, and I know they're going to at least be 20 to 25 grand. I don't want to look at the cheaper stuff. That buyer sometimes will then sort it low to high. Either way, you're the lowest priced vehicle in that person's segment. It's a more appealing car with 20 and higher. And that's what happened on the house. When people said 150 to 200 grand, that house was very appealing. People were showing up on appointments, but maybe they're willing to spend a little bit more, so they bought maybe a nicer house. That's what I'm talking about. If it has too many miles, the 20 and higher shopper will find one with less miles if they're willing to spend more. So they'll just spend more. Sometimes you got to get it below and go to 19.5 and make it more appealing with the 20 less, or maybe no equipment. So that's what happened on the house. The house got a lot of views, a lot of appointments at 150. As soon as they dropped it to 145, it was only appealing to the 150 and less, and it's still at the top end of those people's budget, and the house performance underperforming. Okay? I do a whole workshop on this and photos, description things. We'll go over some of that, but does that make sense? Any questions on that? Is that an aha moment? You guys hear about it before? I know as I was with Viato, we spread it out, and I got through AutoTrader, and they kind of talk about it. I advocate it. I've studied it for the 7 years. Yes, sir.
So you're price shopping $500 every 2 weeks then?
Something like that, depending. Maybe 250s on the in here.
Sometimes you have a
Right here.
percentage too. I mean, $500 on 10,000 on cars is pretty nice, but
Well-
$500 discount on a $45,000 car might not appeal to anybody who's put it in the garage on your website.
Yes.
Or saved it for all those price updates.
Yep.
And you have to compete with that.
And that leads right into this. Don't do small, unimpactful price changes on your vehicles. So, when you only drop it 100 or 2, it doesn't get somebody's that 20 and less shopper, and you drop it $100, they ain't gonna jump off the couch. They'll go, oh, he's still dropping the price. But if you wait 2 weeks and make it more, because you can wait a week, drop it 250, wait another week, drop it 250. Either way, we're going to 19.5. I'd rather wait the 2 weeks, absorb that 20 grand search activity, drop it 5, and hopefully somebody goes, ooh, that's a better price. I better get in there before the deal. So, and that's why I like looking at price changes every 2 weeks and make bigger adjustments than the smaller. And $500 increments, because when I got a report, and I got to speed up now. I've seen shoppers at 12.5. 10.5, because they have that 10 grand shopper look up to 10.5 for a better deal. Even numbers like 22 is a popular number, so 22 grand even, because it's a $400 payment shopper when we look at interest rates. So 22 is an odd number, but it works well because it's a $400 shopper. Don't reset the clock on a car that took too long to get in or out of service. A lot of dealerships will. Or they move from group to group, reset the clock, and all you're doing is shuffling the board, and it's not going to be that impactful for you. And don't let your vehicles be advertised online without double checking the pictures and descriptions. do your virtual lot walk. Don't assume that the person that's there doing your photos that you're paying for are doing their job. So this is the wrap up, but this is the fun part. We do the virtual lot walk for dealers. We'll touch every photo and description and make sure their cars are standing tall in line. Here's some of the stuff that we found. I mean, just total. And then look at this guy. He's holding his head in the background like his wife was divorced from or something. This is a $30,000 Jaguar with brake pads low. Who takes that picture and thinks that that's going to help sell that car? Brake pads low, $37,898. And this one's as dirty as heck. Look how dusty that is. Upside down rear backup camera. So this is the last one and best one. So this dealer was trying to be proactive and take photos before it's their service. The handle's all broken, scratches, and then this bumper sticker says, "At least I can still smoke in my car." So I was like, "Really? What is that bumper sticker?" And this one says, carries no money, no cash because he's married. Yeah, driver carries no cash, he's married. At least I can still smoke in my car. You think that's going to smoke? So, again, 30 minutes I had to go through quick. Here's all my information. Again, we got great tips on the YouTube channel. Subscribe there. I do something every week. Facebook Live, I think he's doing it now. So if you want to get a hold of me, there's my stuff. Again, it's an EN for Jason. But other than that, any questions? Anybody want to share it? I got some leftovers up here, or my business card to see me right after, all right? Yes, sir.
On a car that's taken time to make it through the shop, do you still price adjust even though it's taken 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get it?
Depending, if our fresh sale rate's dropping off on those cars, I said I usually don't address a car until it's 2 weeks old. I let the dealer do what he wants. But if I notice our fresh sale rate's really dropping off and our pricing's going up on those cars, because a lot of times we'll see a trend where their pricing's actually kind of going up on those cars, and it's not the pricing's going up on those cars, it's they've been waiting for the photos and description or get through service, and so they're holding out to change the price. Well, in the meantime, they're 100% of market went to 101 because the market moved, and so it depends on the car. But yeah, I mean, by that 13, 14-day range, I'm like, it's too late. You don't change your pricing strategy to compensate for your lack of turnaround time. You need to fix that problem. So, now it's 14 days, sorry. Dropping the price. We got to get this thing down to 98% because we need to move it. But it depends on the car and miles and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's kind of a penalty. Hey, 14 days, you have plenty of time. I'm not changing the pricing strategies to compensate for your lack of turnaround. So put some more fire in it. And here, realize this. If you just say, even if it's turnaround time. I thought hiring us is like hiring a physical trainer and getting the dealer in shape. But all we were like is dietitians. Because I realize I can clean up their inventory and make them look good, but they still struggle to sell a bunch of fresh stuff, like 50%, and they're still not maximizing age. So it was like them going to Jenny Craig and having their fat pants next to them, and they looked good, but they couldn't do 10 push-ups or run a mile because their turnaround time took 15 plus days, and we'll never get it fixed. Once the turnaround time goes, it's like a CrossFit person. I mean, they're ripped and they can run, they can do everything. And I was talking to somebody earlier, even if you're at 15-day turnaround time, and you could cut it to 13 days, which is horrible, that's 2 days a month. You've cut off that turnaround time. 2 days times 12 months is 24 days. That's selling days. That's an extra month to your year. That's adding a 13th month to your year. So if you do 100 cars a month, you just got 100 more units. You shave 2 days off that turnaround time, even if it's from 15 to 13, and you make $2,000 a car, front and back and everything, and you can add another month of selling to your year, and add that to your bottom line. So I don't care if you're at 15 days and you'll never get down to 7 days. Get it to 13, get it to 11, and then 10. Okay. Anything else? I appreciate the time. Thank you very much for doing the workshop.